Alrighty, welcome to the Excitable Soul Podcast. Here we are interested in all things purpose. We want to know where and how people find meaning and connection in their lives. In every episode, we're going to be hearing the real life stories of how people have uncovered, understood, and unleashed their own unique sense of purpose. Our hope is that we can all learn from the stories and the journeys of our guests so that we can better find a sense of purpose in our own lives. I'm host James Glover, performance coach and purpose nerd. I'm incredibly excited to be exploring these stories with you. So let's get going, shall we? Today we are going to meet Pierre Verstraeten, a transformational leader, a dedicated father, and a man who has turned his deepest pain into his greatest strength. Pierre has navigated through the complexities of loss, rebellion, and burnout to emerge with a profound understanding of his life's true purpose. From the rebellious streets of Paris to the tranquil realms of spiritual awakening in the outskirts of Barcelona. From the demanding corporate boardrooms to the almost surreal entrepreneurship of self-discovery. He embodies the essence of change and the power of choice, channeling his experiences into empowering others. This conversation will serve as a guide for personal and organizational transformation from a humble visionary. He is grounded in purpose, driven by vision, and inspired by a relentless pursuit of excellence. He's mega, and so is this conversation. Enjoy. Pierre, welcome to the Excitable Soul Podcast. If ever there was another Excitable Soul in the world, it's you, my friend. From the moment meeting you nearly 8 years ago now, if you can imagine that amount of time has flown by, I have felt nothing but just soulful enthusiasm for who you are and how you try to be in the world. So it's really brilliant to have you on the podcast today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling honored to be here with you, my friend. I'm very, very happy for being here and spending this quality time with you. I'm feeling it's Friday. It's 2 p.m. here in Barcelona. The sun is shining. I can see the sea. It looks like a very, very pleasant moment ahead of us.
Wonderful. And so I'm immediately jealous that you are sitting paying attention to the December sunshine, and I have just taken off a woolly jumper for this recording. um, but yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to have you with us and for you to be willing to kind of share your journey and your experiences of purpose that I know kind of crisscross between work and your personal life and the journey that you've been on to kind of really find that sense of meaning and connection in your life and the kind of the intentionality you've brought to that journey. So let's just dive right in. So give us a sense of where the path to kind of purpose really started for you, Pierre. Where did you really start to uncover the need for meaning and connection?
It's a very, very broad question,
Big one, isn't
and
it? Yeah.
within yeah, and within so many years of life experience, it's hard to find one definite moment. But there are a few moments
Yeah.
that shaped my understanding of my mission in life and how it will become more and more important. So if I just very quickly summarize a few key milestones. The first one is childhood. Um, I've been blessed with an amazing childhood. I was born in Brazil. I was raised in Ivory Coast. I lived in the States, and I arrived in Paris when I was 8.
Wow.
I was living the dream. The first years I had to really wear some shoes. It was when we arrived to the US, because in Africa it was like just bliss and fun with friends. Back in the days, I was the son of an expat, and
Yeah.
being an expat in the 80s was a different world.
Yeah.
Nobody lives like this anymore. Well, some might be,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
not me at least. And so a very a very privileged childhood um, that very radically contrasted with my family coming back to Paris,
Okay.
and my family suddenly becoming highly dysfunctional.
All right.
Meaning my father would never understand how he could move from big houses and insane quality of life to a normal flat in Parisian suburbs and working as an exec in a large multinational, but being a number among others
Yeah.
rather than being the boss in the local exotic country,
Yes. Yes.
And so suddenly I experienced a big shift in my quality of life that make me from very young age want to live.
Right. Okay.
When I was 13 years old, 13 years old is when I started when I recall the first moment where I say, oh, I want to get out of this house.
Wow.
Okay, actually. And why does this matter? It matters because when I was 13 years old, from a certain sense of discomfort, I started to shape my own vision of
Yeah.
how I would like to live my life.
Wow. At
That
13
was
years old.
that
That.
was the first kind of, yeah, yeah, 13 years old, and then I want something different than what is given to me.
Yeah.
Um, and then so life took me to study business, go to Toulouse, and then finally arrived to Barcelona, super happy. And another very important life event shaped my relationship to purpose and meaning of life is my older brother, Martin, who was 3 years older than I,
Yeah.
decided to give up on life and move to another dimension.
Ah.
And that that life event, it was one of my closest friends. That life event make me wonder what how come that we had the same education, we had very similar cards in
Yeah.
the way we started our lives,
Yeah.
and he decided that the game wasn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
Then I started to think, man, what what gives meaning to all of that?
Yeah.
What makes people really want to enjoy and build, and what makes people want to give up
Yeah.
to that extreme level?
Yes.
Okay, and there are many ways. Many shades of gray in the middle, and so many of us are living without living.
Yes.
They don't arrive to that end. They don't arrive to that extreme because they don't dare. They don't have the courage,
No.
but they don't feel alive every
No.
single day. What makes that spark,
Yeah.
right? I was a very of course a defining moment in my life, but the real kick was my own burnout when I was 27 years old. So what happened is I was working as an organizational consultant, trying to fulfill expectations of mom and dad, especially dad,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
society, and having a good salary and a good position. And then boom, my system said stop, not anymore. There's no fuel anymore.
Yeah.
And feeling in my flesh, in my bones, something somehow close to what my brother felt,
Yes.
really forced me to start investigating how does the human system works, what makes people function from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, a cognitive or mental standpoint, and a spiritual standpoint. Then I started to go on a quest, and it became a journey that is still going on,
Yes.
right? And that is when purpose and meaning became everything for me.
Yeah.
It became my quest, and it became my mission somehow.
And, and so, Pierre, if we just, if we just hold the seismic nature of that journey for a second and just go, right, so there was this moment at 13 of sense making, of understanding that immediately um, uh, shaped your sense of, I want to see the world, I want to experience the world in a different way than I am right now, which in its own right will have shaped thinking, will have shaped decision making, will have shaped choices. Then there's this um, uh, next seismic moment, and I'm sure there are tons in between these things too. But your brother choosing that actually this isn't anymore. I don't want these experiences anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. And the reflective way in which you went, wow, how does somebody get there? What is it that they're experiencing that means that that choice feels like the right one for them? And again, it was this almost acute sense making experience of trying to figure out what's going on here, and then coming again to this moment of burnout. I'm trying to live against expectations that feel outside of me. They feel important to meet, but they're creating a huge amount of cost and burning out as a consequence. And then that being, all right, I've had enough here. I'm not doing it like this anymore. I'm going to find a different way of doing it. And that being almost the inception of what is purpose? What is the mission? What does that look like in the choice, in terms of the choices that I'm going on?
Yeah, that's an excellent summary and um, purpose. There are so many books and so many models about it, and I'm sure the people that will be listening to us can access ChatGPT or Google to find them. So it's not the point. The thing for me was going on a quest, um, and connecting the dots between my different dimensions. And it all started by being privileged enough to meet ayahuasca. Okay, and I started my journey in self discovery by meeting people that guide me to, hey, let's go on that journey.
Yeah.
Let's go on that journey. And that day, my eyes open to that different vision of life.
Yes.
There is a deep sense of rebirth.
Yeah.
Okay, very very profound. That rebirth is a word. It's, if you haven't experienced it, you can't really understand it, grasp it fully. It's a very there is a born twice concept that is well known. Okay,
Yeah.
and so that moment in time for me, it started that quest on, and for me purpose is not so much of a goal.
Yes.
It's, I've understood that for me through that path, my life at least is not about finding myself. My life is about creating myself
Yeah.
one step at a time, one conscious decision at a time.
Yeah. Amazing.
And so um, during that journey, I've explored yoga a lot, meditation, chiropractic, kinesiology, all those topics I studied and practiced for many years. Um, and it made me responsible for every choice I would make. Okay, so that for me is purpose. It is just becoming aware and responsible of the choices I would make. So everything started on my journey to discover my own purpose and my own meaning in life. The day I had the privilege to meet something called ayahuasca,
Right.
and ayahuasca redefined my understanding of existence and my place within it.
Okay.
And that very day that my eyes opened was the day my vision for life was reborn. and
Yeah.
And rebirth is a concept that if you haven't really felt it, like the people that are born twice, people that had cancer, people that had a terrific car accident,
Yeah.
people that were drug dependent, those kind of things, you
Yeah.
don't really know what that means. But
Yes.
it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And from there, I just went on a journey to understand, okay, there is a very different understanding of life than the one I had so far,
Yeah.
just there within myself. And I want to talk to the masters. I want to talk to the people that understood that, that have shown the path and that are helping people to go on that path. And though my journey has been fueled by Eastern and Western influences,
Yeah.
in the East, I studied yoga, I studied meditation, I studied Buddhism and
Yeah.
Hinduism. And in the West, I've studied shamanism from South Africa, South America, sorry, and Central America also, with with ayahuasca, but also with rituals like with the Vision Quest, all those kind of things.
Yes.
And so all those studies, all those influences helped me redefine the value system I wanted to live every day,
Yeah.
and put me in front of my responsibility in every step I would make.
Yeah.
Am I getting closer to the man I want to become,
Yes.
or I'm just being stuck in a pattern that is toxic and meaningless?
Yes. And the way that you framed that to me around this idea of I'm not trying to find myself. I am actually trying to create myself. And every day is an intentional choice of who do I want to become. There is something so freeing about that idea that you don't have to be held in place by the baggage of the past. You can continue to shape the future and the way forward. But that is also informed by the journey that you have been on in the past. So it's not denying, it's not suppressing, it's kind of um, transcending but including.
I love the way you describe it, because so many people are trying to get healed from their past. Meaning, what a lot of people are meaning is, I don't want to feel that anymore.
Yes.
Well, tough luck. It's going to be there for the rest of your life. But what can be done is use that energy from in a different manner. Is convert that part of your identity into a strength.
Mm.
um, I once I read the book. I will find you the name. It was very interesting. It was the story of a kid in the forest, and there is this little lake made of gold, and that lake is forbidden. You should never go to the lake, and you should never touch the lake. And that kid comes to the lake and put the finger in the lake, and bam, his finger becomes golden for life. Everybody that would see the children would see that he has broken the rule. He has put his finger in the lake, and that became is part of his identity, and that's the story of that kid trying to exist within his society with that mark that
Yes.
everybody can see.
Yes.
And I think it's very much about this. It's very much about embracing your past. And I like the way that you're describing it as freeing, because you can redesign your future one step at a time.
Yeah.
But there is another thing that is very freeing, in my opinion, is the notion of having to find yourself.
Yes.
I coach so many people that will say, I don't know who I am. I want to find myself. And that's an everyday quest that has no answer and won't have any answer. You know, and that I think is really important to for me in my belief system to acknowledge, is that is every single step of the way that you're co-creating with universe, with your environment, with the people around you, with the circumstances that life brings in your life, who do you want to be? And that can be very different tomorrow than today.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, you're the same self.
Yes.
And so trying to find your identity versus co-creating and be responsible for the identity that you're shaping today and tomorrow is a very different paradigm.
Yeah, and maybe just a bit of a tangent here, Pierre, just purely based on your skills and experience of working with others. What do you think creates the gap? So why is it, do you think, that people are on the journey to find themselves rather than on the journey to create themselves? What sends them in one direction rather than the other?
Hmm. Um, there is a framework called conscious leadership in the US that is it's very simple. It's above the line or below the line. If you're above the line, life is an opportunity and life is a game. And if you're below the line, life is happening to you. And for me, the difference is ownership.
Yes.
Is trying to find myself is waiting for me to be enlightened and finally find the truth and everything will be solved. And that's an illusion. That doesn't happen. That's a fairy tale. And the other one, the one that is above the line, is people that are taking ownership, that are proactive, that are looking for answers with also a certain sense of realism and humility.
Yes.
And humility in the sense that, come on, we are learning every day and believing that tomorrow everything will be solved is nonsense. And so I the more I speak to older people, the more I love their wisdom and their humility, that they keep on learning from life and they keep on refining what they understand about their purpose, about their footprint in life. So um, for me, the key difference is ownership and humility.
Yeah. And I think, just not from this conversation, but a real thread in all of the conversations that we've been having on the Excitable Soul podcast is the kind of the sense of ownership and willingness to take accountability. So there are some things you have to front up to if you're going to take ownership. You have to say, "Oh wow, that doesn't feel very good," or "I'm not so sure about that, but it's important that I own it. It's important that I embrace it. It's important that I connect from it, because to maintain a level of distance means that I can't truly understand what I need, and the difference between what you want and what you need can be the difference between feeling a sense of progress, feeling a sense of learning and growth, and feeling stuck, because you can be chasing something that doesn't really exist. So the interconnection between ownership and reality feels really, really important. And actually, the kind of the I'm imagining this is kind of what it's like eliciting in me, listening to you, is that sense of humility, that willingness to go, I don't have this figured out, as it turns out, and it was going to require effort for me to do that. That almost feels like the vehicle to being able to create the ownership and the accountability.
Hmm. Yeah, I love what you're saying, and if we deep dive a little bit also into this humility, there is the first thing is that there is no such thing uh, as truth when it comes to your own identity or your sense of purpose that are absolute.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that humility to question yourself and to refine and to realize that this evolves over time, day after day, life event after life event, and you're arrogant enough to believe and to say, well, this is like this, well, the learning curve has suddenly stopped. And another side of humility is that arrogance that says, "See, the end goal looks like that. This is what I'm going to build. This is what I'm going to create. This is what my ego actually wants to create," right?
Yeah.
And when we talk about purpose, it's deeply connected to, okay, what are you going to build? What's the footprint that you want to leave on Earth? And I think humility comes with flexibility to say, hey, I have a sense of the impact I want to have on others, but how? I leave that to universe. I leave that to circumstances. I leave that to what the people around me need,
Yeah.
right? And that is for me very key in driving happiness. Um, um, because I define one of the way I see happiness is the gap or the alignment between my expectation and what is actually happening. And when there is humility, expectations are as little as low as possible. Not in the sense that I have no ambition, but in the sense that I can dance in the moment. I can play with what's going to come. I just want to be true to myself and to my value system and to my purpose in the way I'm going to make decisions, and I'm going to play with what's coming my way.
Yeah.
But things doesn't have to end the way I designed it 5 or 10 years ago. That makes no sense.
Yeah. And could you give us a sense of how you have done that? You know, how have you defined that value system, but how do you continue to maintain a level of openness to the universe and to others about the contribution that you want to and can make in the world? Like, give us, you know, for those that are listening, that's kind of going, whoa, like there is some deep insight here that I need to wrestle with. How do they action that? How do they turn that into
Mhm.
reality? What was your experience?
I mean, there are two different questions, right? For me, is how do you define your value system and how you keep that evolving? And the second thing is how do you want to contribute to the universe, right?
Yep.
Value system. Um, I've understood to simplify it to an energetical reality that's what works best for me, and I just try to read um, the messages that my body is giving back to me when I do something or when I say something.
Interesting.
It's like when you and I are talking, the level of energy that I have in my body, the tone of my voice, how do I look at you, that is telling me that I'm just realizing my purpose, and this is really true to my values. And the other way around, if I do something like I had the other day a conversation with someone that was just bringing me problems and problems and problems and problems and no solution, and there were no ownership, and that would drag me down. Okay, then I can directly see that one of my values is transmitting knowledge, which is what we are doing today,
Yes.
and another of my value is ownership, which was unmet in
Yes.
that conversation that drove my energy down,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so the way I read my value system is through the energetical response that I feel in every moment, in every conversation, in every action I take.
All right.
Okay.
We need to like we need to we just need to lock that down. All right. Let's just take a moment because I don't know about you. You know, we live in this world of kind of human performance and human development, and we kind of really invest in learning, and we want to bring other people and support other people in that journey of understanding more. And there is lots of knowledge out there that people can kind of absorb. Um, they can devour. They can take piece by piece, but they just need to pause and listen to that for a second because the hairs on my arms are standing up, which is the way in which I read my value system is by paying attention to the energy experience that I'm having in the moment, and that helping me see whether or not I feel alignment or misalignment with a value in that moment. And how the layers of
Exactly.
wonderfulness here, Pierre, there's a simplicity to it, which is allow yourself to feel what you are feeling and use that data to be able to give you a guide as to how connected or not you are to what matters. Mega. Second is
Mm.
the fact that the presence or absence of your values in any experience still is giving you a sense of what is happening. So if the values are absent, you're going to feel some stuff. If the values are present, you're going to feel some stuff. And knowing that you're feeling some stuff is important, because that then creates the picture or the view of the world that you need to lean into. And it goes so much further than, here's a whole load of words on a page. Which one of those feel important to you?
Man. uh, so there are two concepts that are important to me there. The first thing is, no matter how many books you read, it won't ever make you happy. It won't ever make you connected to your purpose. For me, it is, we're talking, for me, purpose and meaning in life is something very spiritual. And funny enough, spirituality goes with practice. And
Yes.
so the real sensation, the energetical experience of what I feel,
Yeah.
this is true to you,
Yeah.
not to the book,
Yeah.
not to the theory, not to the model. And so the truth is within yourself,
Ah,
not within the books. And books are very insightful, but there is nothing more insightful than your own body and your emotion system, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is I think is super important is um, being able to have that simplicity in reading my energy levels in what is happening is codependent with the notion of which emotion am I allowed to feel.
yeah.
What I mean with that is that a lot of us have introjections. Introjections are things that we learn from our family, from our culture, from our work, from whatever. That says, for example, anger is forbidden, anger is bad.
Yeah.
Sadness is for weak people.
Yes.
Those kind of things. And so the more you have those barriers, the more difficult it will find for you. It will be difficult for you, sorry, to really be able to read your compass in the moment freely and get to know you
Yes.
and get to reach your own essence, because there are areas of yourself that you reject because they've been rejected by your parents and by the society and whatever, and you ban them.
Yeah.
And that is that fluidity in the emotional intelligence, in the ability to read and embrace every emotion of the humankind, is not a given for most of us.
No.
It's something that you have to free up from the learnings,
Yes.
from the conditioning that we all receive from our young age or the environment we're in. So two things: practice over knowledge
Yes.
and experience over models. That's the
Yes.
first thing. And the second thing is, every emotion is part of humankind and is yours to own. And I had the other day a conversation with my wife about anger, and she's a very spiritual being. And we were discussing about how do we allow ourselves to feel anger. And she's like, yeah, but all my spiritual teachers, they try to put anger on the side. And like it's a bad emotion to feel. It's toxic to you. It's toxic to others. But if you look into psychology, into the very basic psychology concepts, all emotions are part of yourself, and the more you reject something, the more it controls you. And so for me, there is a work to be done here of acceptance
Yes.
of, I am all that is possible, and therefore I can flow from one extreme to the other one without seeking a perfect balance that doesn't exist,
Yes.
or avoidance of some parts of myself that's described by Carl Jung, just my shadow, and my shadow is controlling me.
Yeah. I, beautiful, just beautifully eloquent, Pierre. And this may sound, this is in no way going to do justice to the wisdom that you just shared. But a practical reality in my life at the moment is we have been doing work at our house, and I've been extremely grateful to be able to move my family in with my parents. It's been a wonderful experience for everybody, but we're really eager to be able to get back into our home. And I found myself in the last few days, as things are kind of narrowing towards the finish line, becoming more and more frustrated, more and more irritated, more and more kind of anxious around the things that are happening and aren't happening. And um, my wife has been just an incredible guide in me not creating a level of judgment of myself, but actually really understanding what's happening here, which is I'm trying to meet a perceived expectation. And the perceived expectation is entirely one that I have cultivated. It has been on me to feel like we need to be at a certain place at a certain time. It is me feeling like I need to meet the needs of my family, whether that's giving my parents their house back, or giving my children their rooms back, or allowing my wife to have the space that we've wanted to create. But the reality of all of that is that none of it is real. It is all something that I have cultivated in the moment. And that false reality has driven those emotions. And actually just being able to kind of play that out and go, who's putting the timeline on this? Like, why is that eliciting all of these outcomes? Now there's a practical reality, which is I need, and the builders need, something to aim towards, right? And we need to be on the same team to kind of get across the finishing line together and be able to decipher what that finishing line looks like. But all of the emotions that I just described that have come to the fore have all been generated by an internal expectation that I've set. The moment that my wife is able to help me call that out is the moment that I can let go of it and I'm no longer suffering the cost. Now, that isn't me going, oh, wow, those emotions are bad. I need to not feel them. I need to push them to one side. It's me just going, well, no, I understand them. And actually, there is a likelihood that they will reoccur, but at least I understand them, because that gives me choice. It gives me agency in that experience.
Yes, I love what you bring because we come back to the point that we mentioned earlier. It's all about expectations. When you set expectation and you are not met, this is the formula for anger, frustration, impatience, you name it. I I'll tell you a story. When I became a dad, for me, becoming a dad was not an easy journey because my value number one was freedom, and we're coming back to how do my value system can evolve. It was freedom, and suddenly the first months of fatherhood are not very very pleasant. You are a logistic guy trying to help your wife and your daughter bond and be safe, and so okay, all right. And I remember that we were first parent. Now we have two kids, and every difficult health situation would directly take us to the hospital because oh my god, we don't know what is happening,
Yes.
and we need to be secure. And I remember so many nights where my wife tells me, "Hey, we need to go to the hospital because something is happening. Something is not right." I think the first year we've been like 12 times. Maybe we were too anxious. I don't know. But as I was suffering a lot from the loss of freedom, I started to investigate a little bit on the meaning of freedom. And for me, it was not about the the what I expect the night should be. Like you, when do I expect to be able to come back to home, to my own home? Because that would create suffering. But it was okay. This is happening to me. Who's the man I want to be?
All right. Yeah, I think I need to kind of just hold us for a moment in this space, because it's kind of just the wisdom is pouring out of you. This idea of, you know, humility being the thing that kind of lowers the importance of my expectation. So, in that example that we're using, it's me that's setting the timeline. It's me that's kind of driving and creating a level of intensity and discomfort. But actually, what's needed of me is to recognize that, acknowledge it, and realize that what I want in this moment probably isn't as important as what we, the collective, the family, needs. I almost hear you framing that in a way of, what's the decision that helps me get closer to the man that I want to be? So, who and how do I really want to show up in this moment? How do I want my kids to see me or remember me in this moment? And similarly for you in that example of the first year of fatherhood and being woken in the middle of the night, and I can really resonate with that sense of, oh, but I've literally been asleep for 5 minutes and it's 4 a.m. Like, what is happening? But knowing that isn't actually who I want to be. Who I want to be is the person that is able to lower the anxiety of my partner, make sure that I'm taking care of my daughter, of my little person. I think the thing that's really showing up for me, or the question that I really have here, is how do you do that when you are really triggered, when you are really challenged, when maybe you are not at the best of yourself? How do you create the moment to make a different type of choice rather than just feeling compelled to kind of act in any particular way?
Very good. Very good question. The first thing is I screw up a lot. I think it's also important to that's also part of the humility, right? So I'm human, and when a situation is really triggering my core values, and especially when time pressure goes high, then sometimes I screw up, no problem. But life also teach me that no matter how big the mistake, you can flip that around and make it an opportunity for growth and even strengthening of the relationship if you do that right.
Okay. Wow.
And so sometimes in the very moment, I do not know how to do it better.
Yeah.
Okay. But there is this constant practice of self-awareness and self-reflection that goes with, okay, what could have I done better? Was I true to myself? Besides humility, there is a concept that is very, very important, is honesty.
Yeah.
With oneself. Okay. And so when we have that, you have the ability to reflect, sit back, reflect, and just structure what's the impact I had on others, and what's the right message I want to frame in order to make the other feel understood, respected, and to course correct my point in order to reflect who I want to be.
Yes.
Okay.
And so that immediately makes me think of two things. One is the self-compassion of being able to acknowledge that we're human and we're going to make mistakes. So, let's not hammer ourselves. Let's not give ourselves a lot of abuse for not getting it right in the moment. But let's also be honest with ourselves and say, we could have done that better. And so how might we do that better in the future? That feels liberating.
What you're saying is so important, because one day I was seeing that picture, that drawing. I will try to describe it so the people that listening to us can understand it. Imagine a whiteboard with divided in, let's say, 30 boxes, and in each box is a human emotion. Okay, and some are pride, joy, and some are envy, jealousy, anger.
Yeah.
And so imagine a person showing up and say, "Hey, that's my whiteboard. This is who I am. I am all that." And the people would be like, "Oh, what the fuck? Have you seen this? Have you seen that? That person is ugly." And so so oneself will feel ashamed and try to hide. Oh, okay, sorry. I see that the people are not reacting well to seeing that I can be angry. So I will try to hide my anger.
Yes. Yeah.
And suddenly, what you're building in the psychology of people is walls to try to contain anger so that it is not visible to the world, because that's what you've understood, that it is not welcome. As soon as you're building those walls, your anger starts to control your life. Because you won't be able to express frustration in a fine manner, in a subtle manner, in a nuanced manner. It will be from 0 to 100. You have no choice over it because you don't accept it. It doesn't belong to you anymore. You've tried to isolate it. You've tried to hide it. And therefore, boom, that part of you that you're so ashamed of, that is your shadow. We already mentioned shadow from Carl Jung earlier in the podcast, right? Is suddenly controlling you and showing up to the world in an uncontrolled way when you don't decide it. And so easing up and having the self-compassion that says, I am all that, and I accept all this. The only thing is, I recognize that some of those human parts are not really bringing the impact I want to bring to the world. And therefore, when those emotions appear, I don't try to neglect them, because sometimes they are very useful. Ask a father of, and I don't want to go into politics, but imagine you're living in Kiev, in Ukraine, and suddenly there is a Russian soldier coming to your house. Could you be a murderer to defend your family? Right? Would anger be there? Right? So some of those emotions that are socially unaccepted are in some situations the best answer. And you want to have the flexibility, you want to own your whole self. And so I personally recognize when those parts of myself are manifesting. And when I self-reflect and I say, oh, you know what? That didn't create the impact I wanted to create in that very moment. It was inappropriate. And then you can formulate the right message and come back to the person.
And how does purpose enable this process? I'm kind of making the assumption here that when you're clear on your sense of purpose, you've talked about this language of quest and mission that were born out of a journey of self-exploration, and a strong desire to intentionally cultivate and nurture a person that you want to be. So, clarity around what matters to you, clarity around the contribution that you want to make. The assumption I'm making is that when you invest in that work, that becomes an anchor in these moments to be able to create a sense of self-compassion, or to be able to create a sense of context and perception. In this moment, I didn't necessarily behave the way that I wanted to, because you have a sense of who you wanted to be, because you have a clarity of purpose. But I'm making the assumption about all of that. Like, how does purpose frame and scaffold those choices and decisions for you?
It's a great question, because you helped me to come back to your initial questions. It's how do you do that in the moment? My first answer was, hey, sometimes I screw up. But the other option is kind of that formula where purpose has an important role. That formula is purpose or meaning. It is the core and the base of what I want my footprint to be in this society. And on top of that are some kind of operating principles or values. Okay? Values manifest, and when they manifest, they become operating principles. And so when you have this moment of self-reflection after you're screwed up, or even during the moment where you're just trying to buy time. You're just trying to say, okay, this is happening, this is triggering me. I'm self-aware, I'm conscious of my reaction. I've noticed my red flags, the heartbeat, the temperature, the tone of my voice. I see all that happening, and I'm able to buy time. Okay, buy time. What do I really want to create with that interaction? Yeah. Everything we do has a positive intent. Okay, even when we believe, even when we're being angry, without knowing it, if there is no self-awareness, what you're trying to do is protect your values. There is a positive intent in every single thing we do. Okay, and so when you buy time in that situation, in that moment, and recognize to, hey, what's my true goal with that interaction, and how that interaction is bringing me closer to realization of my meaning.
Yeah.
Okay. I give you an illustration. So I'm a coach, I'm a trainer, and sometimes you have to set up a room for a trainer. You have to print your training materials, whatever. Those are not really pleasant actions to perform, right? But when they're simply connected to why am I doing this? What's my positive intent here, and how this setup is going to facilitate the bigger picture that I have in mind, then it all makes sense, and then it becomes very natural. You don't think about it. You just naturally do your best so that interactions serves the core positive intent that you have, which is the realization of your purpose.
There's something inherently hopeful of being able to turn around and say, somewhere here there is a positive intent, and you need to understand and surface that positive intent, because it will help you make sense of the reaction. Like, what is it that actually you can see and understand about yourself that is a root cause for that interaction and that bit. And I'm thinking that there's a rabbit hole conversation here of us getting into the positive intent in every action, for sure. but there's something important for people to hold on to, right? I'm thinking about our listeners and us, the provocation that we're putting to them, which is, when you have clarity on what matters to you and the contribution that you're trying to make in the world, when you are purposeful and you're intentional about that, you can then make choices. And, you've said in this conversation, there is freedom in choice. We have the freedom to make any choice in any situation, in any scenario. So the first thing there is accountability, right? And ownership. You are the one that is responsible for that choice. That feels hard, right? Wow, wallop! All of a sudden, whew, I've got to own that. I've got to hold this. Are you joking? Do you know the situation I find myself in? Do you know what they say to me? But we're saying, no, hold on, start with you. Then off the back of that, we're turning around and saying, but remember that you are a human being. You are not perfect, and you're not going to respond in exactly the right way all of the time. No. So just give yourself a bit of a break. Doesn't take away the accountability, but give yourself a bit of a break. The next step here is, who do you want to be? Are you clear on that? What's the gap that you're trying to close? And remember that whatever your reaction was in this situation, there will have been some positive intent behind it. We're kind of, we're creating a reality of experience for people here, which is, there is some stuff that's going to make you feel like there's effort, and there is. You have to create the accountability. But there's also a sense of liberation, which is, it's not all on you. Okay, be kind to yourself. You're never going to get it 100% right. And then there is a hopefulness of, actually, there is something important here and useful and positive for me to pay attention to in the thick of any situation or circumstance. That feels really magical to me.
And that connects to the third element of the equation, which is practice. So the first element of the equation is meaning.
Yeah.
Right. What do I want to realize? The second element is operating principles or values.
Yes.
How do I want to interact in the world in order to realize that meaning and create the impact I want to create? But the third thing is practice, practice, practice. and little by little, with practice comes continuous learning loop. What makes me connect with that is that when you are too hard on yourself, you're not allowing the learning to happen.
Yes.
When you're beating yourself up, you're not having the right conversation with yourself.
No.
Okay, you need to have that beginner's eye. That kind of the shaman says it's the observer mode. You step out of yourself and you look at yourself like, oh, poor kid.
Yeah.
Right? And what is to be learned for him? So don't beat yourself up at all, because this is not the right conversation to have. But practice and learning are, of course, coming together. They are two sides of the same coin. You practice. Practice makes perfect. It's an English expression. I don't believe so much into perfection, because when you say it's hopeful, I don't know why it triggered a word in my mind that was, it's also infinite.
Yes.
You can keep on improving again and again and again and again, and get better at the way you treat others, and get closer at your purpose. And why it's infinite? It's because purpose is something so conceptual that can be replicated or manifested in so many forms that it never ends. When a human being is driven by its ego, like, I'm going to build that building and I'm going to put my name on it as the biggest architect of the city, that is ego, and that is finite. Yeah. All right, but purpose is not. The architect in itself, the person who designed the building, is not going to end after that building. He will keep on creating vision. He will keep on helping others, having different life experience. And you want to remove yourself from, it has to have that shape, it has to have that form, it has to be that way, because that is the ego game. But the manifestation of your purpose is something that is infinite, and the way you're going to master, and the way you're going to be able to manifest it with more elegance, with more art, with more kindness to others, for me, is an infinite path of improvement.
Yeah, I love that. And let's maybe change up the English language. This idea of practice makes perfect. Let's reframe that into practice creates progress. I think that's more useful for us. So, Pierre, I guess where that kind of leads me really in this conversation is maybe just to get your thoughts when you look forward. You talked about the kind of the meaning element. You talked about the kind of the values manifestation and the importance of practice. But I'm really interested in the kind of the leaps of faith bit. I'm interested in when you think about purpose and you look forward and you think about the future that you're trying to create. Where have been the leaps of faith, maybe, but also, those kind of moments of courage, and what are you excited about? What do you think is now going to be possible for you when you think about purpose in the future?
Well, leaps of faith in my life, I have been always relatively cautious. And when I decided to change career and go into people transformation business, it was 2011, I have been step by step trying to learn, trying to improve. I remember once I was working in a multinational, and I was delivering a workshop for a leadership team, and the boss of that leadership team, at the end of the workshop, told me, "Wow, the day you start your own business, you're gonna get clients." And I was like, "Wow, that was the biggest compliment that I could get." And it's someone that I really, really trust. And I was like, "Oh my God," but I would not I did not believe it.
Yeah.
It was too far. And so I had to go through another corporate experience after that, and then started my own company with a couple of friends. Again, being cautious. So starting my own company, but not alone.
Yes.
With couple of friends with complementary skills to test the waters. I will always be able to come back. I'm not alone trying to do that. And I was leading my part of the practice. We were a small consulting company, and I was leading my practice. And my practice always overperformed. I was like, man, after a couple of years looking at all those numbers, target versus achievement, I was like, there is something that is okay-ish.
Yeah.
And so I have to say that I've needed some proof, some security in order to really get in the flow. And after that experience, I decided to move on and build my own company, and now be leading that on my own. And I did. That was a pure leap of faith, but also not so much requiring bravery, because bravery is having fear and doing it anyway, right?
Yes.
And I've been very I think I've been very cautious and somehow a little bit risk adverse. Yeah. Like I need to build it one step at a time and make sure the bridge is solid enough so I can cross from one side to the other one.
Yeah.
And take my family with me.
Yes.
And so that's what I've been doing, and I have to say that the more I keep walking in the same direction, the more I see that. What did you say? Practice makes improvement, something like this.
Progress. Practice makes
progress. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I like also the term better version.
Yes.
It's not best, because best means in an end. It's better. It keeps on getting better. And so I think I use that sense of purpose as a compass to assess decision after decision, project after project, which one is the one that makes me resonate the most, makes me progress the most on my path.
Yes.
But I have to say that I'm very, very grateful, because now I do have trust that I'm in a certain flow where there is abundance of work, abundance of opportunity to meet wonderful people to work with, and abundance of opportunity for me to keep on improving.
Yes.
So my wife is big on the concept of abundance, and I do not know much about it myself, but I take it as the trust that more is coming. Yeah.
And one of the things that I adore about having these conversations, and I'm always grateful for all of our guests to come and just share with kind of authenticity around their experiences of purpose, is that people orientate to it in different ways. So there's a sense of leap of faith, which is about bravery and courage. I'm going into the unknown because I feel conviction around purpose, and so I'm just going to will it to happen. But actually what I've just heard from you there feels compelling in a completely different way, which was, actually, you know what? I've been cautious and deliberate in the choices that I've made, but purpose has been the sense-making mechanism to help me make those choices. Does this next step feel like I'm going on the path that leads me to growth, leads me to progress, leads me to the person that I want to be? And purpose has helped you make that choice of this or that. So it might not be this massive leap into the unknown. It's an incremental shift, but purpose has been the guide around the choices that's helped you see the next increment. So the end game is still the same, right? Which is progress.
I think it's super important when you talk about self-compassion earlier, um, to allow people to be themselves in
Yeah.
their own relationship with their purpose. When you know that there is sometimes there's a little bit of dictature of positivity, of trust and go in the flow. That those kind of things that you hear a lot in the spiritual world. And what if I doubt?
Yeah.
If I doubt, am I the black sheep? Am I
Yes.
am I not doing it right? Because that's not the book says I should not doubt, right?
Yes.
That's what the book says.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for everyone to respect his own nature. Some are risk adverse, some are risk takers, and it's not black and white, it's a scale. And there are moments when you're gonna be driven by vision, and there are moments where you're gonna be driven by safety.
Yeah.
And it all depends on what is at stake in front of you. We all have a family, not everybody has a family, but we all have bills to pay, right?
Yes.
And sometimes you need to secure stuff, okay? And sometimes you can be a little bit of a bigger man and little bit of a more visionary and take more risk. So accept that it's kind of a gravity center that sometimes goes down when you want to protect safety, and sometimes goes up when you feel like the stars are aligned enough to take a leap of faith. You don't have to take the leap of faith at every step you make. That's in my opinion. That would be a lack of care. No, there is a word in French is prudence. I'm not
Yeah.
sure how it. Yeah,
Yeah. Prudence. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, right. And so I personally try to integrate that concept in my life. Okay, and I don't know if we should discuss that earlier in the podcast, but one day that shaman told me that the purpose of the mind is to serve the purpose of the heart, and therefore I have the purpose of the heart that tells me this is what I want to build, this is how I want to impact society. But my mind is structured, is process driven, is logical, is pragmatic, and therefore I'm gonna build a solid bridge, man, and so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can make it to the other side happy and healthy with my kids and my wife.
Yeah.
And so I have my own way to take my leap of faith that is
Yeah.
meeting my nature and my circumstances.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. Right, but you know what? Where I just want to pause. I want to stop the conversation here because that is the thing that should be in people's ears, and in their minds and in their hearts when they leave this conversation, which is we should all be given the freedom to orientate around purpose in our own way, but we should
Yeah,
all put the effort into understanding what that way is. And I love this principle of the purpose of the mind is to serve the purpose of the heart. If we could all understand that interaction with a greater level of clarity, there can only be more good things happening in the world for all of us. So Pierre, I just so thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you, and your perspective, your soulfulness, your wisdom. It's just been wonderful, and I know that the people listening are going to get just a huge amount out of it. So thank you so much for being with us.
thank you so much, James. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and thank you so much for having me. And I'm, when I received your onboarding pack, it is incredibly well designed. And I'm surprised how organically the whole conversation evolved into something deeper that what I've expected. And I think if we're able to bring that very human conversations to the corporate world, we are really having a big impact rather than having podcasts about, hey, this is how you raise funds, hey, this is how you set up your structure for scale, blah blah blah, which
Yeah.
we hear everywhere. So I really super grateful for the quality of the conversation that you conducted for both of us.
Amazing. Well, you are welcome, and thank you for that too. It's incredibly kind of you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you, James.
Massive thank you for taking the time to listen to the Excitable Soul podcast. If you are interested in uncovering, understanding, and unleashing your sense of purpose, come and explore our purpose immersion programs at theexcitablesoul.com. We look forward to hearing from you there or being with you on our next episode. Have an incredible day.